They took down the Wild in 6. Now round 2 presents a new challenge for the Golden Knights. Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and the defending Western Conference champions are set to take on Vegas in the second round for the second time in 3 seasons. From the Wild and Fleury to containing Edmonton's dynamic duo, we're talking about it all right now here on Sin City Beat.
From Las Vegas, this is Sin City Beat.
Hello and thanks for joining us here on Sin City Beat. I'm Mike Davis. Sin City Beat is the show that dissects the Vegas sports world through the eyes of the sports reporters and storytellers leading the charge. Joining the action on the panel this time, we have Ray Brewer, managing editor of the Las Vegas Sun, Chris Chapman, but you know him as Magnum 702, reporter for Fox Sports Las Vegas and producer of the VGK Insider Show. And lastly, our very own reporter here at Fox 5 Las Vegas, it's Mike Allen. Great to have him back with us and great to have you all here. So let's start with this. In the first round, the Golden Knights took down the Minnesota Wild in 6 games. Chris Chapman, Magnum 702. What did we learn about the Knights from this initial Wild series?
Well, Mike, we learned that the Golden Knights have a second gear when they need it. We learned that Bruce Cassidy is a really good coach, as if we didn't already know that. But the adjustments he made when the Golden Knights were down, I think maybe you look at a decision he didn't make in Game 4 in Minneapolis or in St. Paul, when he could have challenged for goalie interference, maybe would have put the Wild on a power play in a tie game.
Yeah.
We saw the coach of LA make that mistake and ended up probably costing them the series. But what we learned about Vegas is Jack Eichel, when he needs to elevate his game, he's got the ability to take it to another level. He did that in games 4, 5, and 6, and quite frankly, that's why Vegas is still playing and Minnesota is making tea time reservations.
Harsh words right there, Ray Brewer and Mike Allen. So Ray, do you agree with this sentiment? What did you learn from this initial round 1 series?
So I was reminded, like I'm sure Magnum 702,
yes,
not Magnum 725, but I was reminded of how awesome playoff hockey is, because on any given night, any given team could win,
right.
And you saw Vegas really getting taken to the limits. I was also reminded of how good Adin Hill is, because I thought he was masterful in the back half of that series, and I'm surprised you didn't mention him, because I thought he was a huge difference maker. And at this leg of the game, it's survive and advance, and now they're advancing on, and they've got a lot of great momentum with how they closed off that series against the Wild, and I think that's immensely invaluable.
It's easily a series that could have went the other way. Mike Allen, your thoughts, please share them with us.
Well, I want to build off what Ray said. You know, Ray, the goaltending, of course, you need that in order to win the Stanley Cup, and you need to win close games. And you're not going to win close games if Adin Hill is not on. 3 of the 4 games that Vegas lost last year to Dallas was by 1 goal, and one of them was actually even an empty netter. So that may as well have been 4 out of 4 losses were just by 1 goal. This time around, Vegas was 3-0 against the Wild in 1-score games. Of course, a couple of them in overtime. So, of course, while that makes us stress as fans,
yes,
it's what you got to do if you're going to win. So, Ray, you're absolutely right. The goaltending very much helps with that. And also, Chris, having a player who you can rely on to step up, absolutely, that was Jack Eichel. You need both of those things in order to make it far in the playoffs.
Yeah, it was a little back and forth in this series. It's interesting because the Oilers, they lost the first 2, so they had to come from behind, Chapman, in that. Do you think them coming from behind, them having that juice into the second round, does that help them in a sense as they prepare for the Knights?
No, I don't, because I think that was more a case of the Kings kind of giving it away.
That was more of a collapse.
Yeah, and listen, credit to Edmonton, because you got to take advantage of your opportunities when they're given to you. And the analogy I have is like the Oilers walked into a bank as bank robbers, and the manager left the alarm off, left the vault open, and the doors unlocked, because LA could not have served it up any better than what they did for the Oilers in games 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Okay, yeah, and you definitely don't want to leave open a bank vault when you got Draisaitl
right.
and McDavid as well. So, guys, beyond moving on in the Stanley Cup playoffs, there was additional meaning in that Game 6 victory. And Game 5, I should say. Well, VGK legend Marc-Andre Fleury played his last NHL game in front of fans at T-Mobile. The meaning of that moment is next.
You're watching Sin City Beat.
40 years old, 21 seasons in the NHL, the Canadian goaltender who started his career with the Pittsburgh Penguins after being drafted first overall in the 2003 draft, ultimately made his way to the Golden Knights via the 2017 NHL expansion draft. Now, after 4.5 seasons in Vegas, Fleury ended his career spending time with the Chicago Blackhawks as well as the Minnesota Wild. 1,051 games played, his last a storybook ending as Fleury left the ice for the last time in front of the Knights fans here at T-Mobile Arena. So Ray Brewer, is Marc-Andre Fleury the greatest Golden Knight of all time?
I don't know if the word greatest is how I'd label it, but I would say the most important Golden Knight of all time.
Yeah.
Again, I mentioned this a few weeks ago, but he embraced coming to the franchise as the first pick in the expansion draft. He was really, really good. He led Vegas to the Stanley Cup in the first year, and along the way helped us heal from the October 1 mass shooting. Massively important. Also along the way, taught us how to fall in love with the game of hockey, and everybody in this city is crazy for the Vegas Knights simply because of the success they had in year one, and that's because of him. Without him embracing us, without his performances, they don't win the Stanley Cup a few years ago. I don't think that the business is such an overwhelming success for Bill Foley. Most important Golden Knight of all time.
See, I like it. And, you know, Mike Allen, back in the back office, you and I were discussing kind of like, you know, I guess, would he be the George Washington on the Mount Rushmore of all these, you know, future players, all these legendary Golden Knights? What's your take on that?
So my take is, yes, I do think he'd be the George Washington. So Washington may or may not be the greatest president of all time, but he is probably the most important, and certainly the first most important president chronologically, right? No doubt that Fleury is the greatest player ever to be a Knight. Of course, you include his time with Pittsburgh. He's one of the greatest goaltenders ever. But, I mean, you can also just take his time as a Knight and say he was arguably better here in Vegas than he was in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Only Vezina of his career was won here in Vegas. Also, fewer goals allowed per game in Vegas, higher winning percentage, and a higher save percentage as well. Flower, I think, very easily is the George Washington on the Golden Knights Mount Rushmore. You could make the argument he's the greatest player in franchise history.
Well, and it's fascinating because Fleury in Canada actually also chopped down a cherry tree. I don't know if you know that, Magnum 702. But no, you know what, Chris, you're a big-time hockey guy. You've been covering this team for a long time from the get-go. What is it? I mean, because Fleury, you walk around town. Still to this day, you're in an Albertsons, you're in a Smith's, you're at a Del Taco. You see people wearing Fleury jerseys. You go to the games. Fleury is still such a fixture of this franchise. And then, of course, that was such the dramatic finish here, that overtime loss, him losing here on the ice, but finalizing his career here. What's your sentiment on this, and why do you think Las Vegas took to Marc-Andre Fleury in particular?
I think it's what both Ray and Mike said. I mean, aside from his play on the ice, he was such a personality off the ice and in the locker room. In fact, I mean, I'm going to do a humble brag here, but a few years ago, coming out of the COVID bubble, the NHL made a video where they showed these player awards, and Fleury was nominated for, like, you know, just being a character. And they actually took me asking him a question about being a prankster. And they put that in their little video. It was the only, so humble brag, it was the only reporter to have their voice in that. So I think it was not only his play on the ice, but he was just such a dynamic personality, such a likable guy. Always had time to sign autographs for the fans. I mean, I would see him after practice, sometimes 15, 20 kids deep, just sitting there signing autographs. And, you know, in this day and age, he's probably not going to go down as the best Knight ever, but like Ray said, the most significant or most important, because he gave the franchise legitimacy.
Gotcha. Now, if he says most important, and that's kind of the thoughts everybody's having. Just real quickly, we've got 30 seconds. Who is the greatest night of all time? If you're saying Fleury's the most important, who is the greatest?
When we're all said and done, it'll be Jack Eichel, but right now it's Jonathan Marchessault.
Really? So Eichel,
Conn Smythe winner. He was here from day one. He scored 40-plus goals in a season. I think he's the all-time leader in points. Right now, he is the best Golden Knight ever.
what do you say to that, Ray?
I would say I'm on the Eichel train. However, it's 1A and 1B, and you are right. When the dust settles, Eichel probably is going to have a few more years. It's going to be Eichel's show.
Okay.
But hopefully in 15 more years, Eichel's 5th on the list, and they get some better players.
Well, you guys provided a tremendous transition for me right now because the Oilers have the dynamic duo of McDavid and Draisaitl. But coming up, we want to focus on the McDavid-Eichel connection, forever connected, like Magnum 702 and me. More Sin City Beat after these words. All right, let's go back. The 2015 NHL draft, Connor McDavid went first overall to the Oilers. Then second, the Buffalo Sabres took Jack Eichel. Seen as two generational talents, these two studs are now connected yet again. Eichel is the face of the Knights, and McDavid is the face of the league. McDavid is a 7-time All-Star, a 5-time Art Ross Trophy winner, that's given to the player who leads the league in points, and a 3-time Hart Memorial Trophy winner, which is the MVP award. On top of all that, his nickname is McJesus, which is basically the greatest nickname in all of sports history. Now, the only thing he doesn't have, though, is a Stanley Cup. Meanwhile, Jack Eichel is a 4-time All-Star with a Stanley Cup. So, Mike Allen, who needs this series more for their legacy, Eichel or McDavid?
Well, you kind of made the argument. Eichel already has a Stanley Cup championship. McDavid has pretty much everything except that. He doesn't have an Olympic win either, but of course the Stanley Cup, that's what everyone is judged by. Now, from one perspective, McDavid has nothing left to prove. Like you mentioned, he won 3 Hart trophies. He's actually the only person besides Wayne Gretzky to unanimously win the Hart Trophy. And again, he's won it 3 times. He's only 28 years old. But you think about some of the other players on his level historically, Sidney Crosby, of course, Gretzky, maybe Mario Lemieux. They all had multiple championships by this time in their career, by the time they were 28. Nothing wrong with being the Dan Marino of your sport, right?
Yeah.
But if you want to carve your legacy out as one of the greatest of all time, if, for example, speaking of Mount Rushmore, like we talked about last segment, if he's going to be on the hockey Mount Rushmore of all-time players, to get in that rarefied air, you need that ring.
Yeah, I mean, and listen, Marino had a cannon, and he was also in an Ace Ventura movie. So let's let's add that to the list as well.
Point.
But I mean, it is fascinating. You bring up a good point there, Mike. Is McDavid that great if he's not propelling his team to a victory? He's already 28 years old. Draisaitl's 29. So, I mean, do you guys look at it like if he really was that generational talent, the #1 pick of the draft back then, should he have accomplished a little bit more from a team perspective?
It just goes to show you how much of a team sport hockey is, right? 4 lines, McDavid might be on the ice in 80, 90-second intervals, and then he's off the ice.
Yeah.
And he's going to impact the game, but nobody's going to be able to impact the entire game. Absolutely correct. We're in this era where we judge people by championships won. Charles Barkley didn't win a ring.
Whoa. No,
Right?
I'm not going to have any judgment on my guy Chuck on this. That's my dude.
Dan Marino, I'm the Dan Marino of our show, right? I haven't won a ring either. But I just think that this is another opportunity for McDavid to further himself in the playoffs, to cement his legacy.
Yes, it's a big opportunity for that. Now, Magnum 702, question for you. In order for the Edmonton Oilers or the Vegas Golden Knights to win this series, would it be a bigger problem for McDavid to not have a great series and win that tank the Oilers, or do the Knights really need Eichel? So, for instance, I guess the best way to ask this question, if Eichel doesn't have a great series, can the Knights still win? Or if the Oilers, if McDavid doesn't have a great series, can they still win?
No, I don't think Edmonton can win if McDavid doesn't have a great series.
What about Eichel and
I don't think Eichel needs to have a great series against Edmonton for Vegas to win the series. I think the reasoning is Edmonton's bottom six,
Yes.
and basically their bottom pair of D-men are Jags. They're just guys.
So and we were saying a little bit earlier, just to off air, a good conversation for this as we're kind of weeding and whining a little bit. You're basically saying, because a lot against the Kings, the Oilers lost the 2 first games of the series, then they won 4 straight. A lot of people would think, wow, you don't want to go up against McDavid and Draisaitl in a series, but in a lot of ways, you think the lack of depth Edmonton has, this is actually a better matchup for us rather than going against the LA Kings.
Yeah, because Vegas's depth has proven it all year. And the year they won the Cup, they proved it. They had guys like Michael Amadio scoring big goals for them and helping them win games. Edmonton has guys who are capable of stepping up, but they haven't done it consistently. Like Connor Brown, he's a fine player, but I don't think he's a consistent enough player where you're worried about him. You're not worried about Victor Arvidsson or former Golden Knight Matthias Janmark. Sure, those guys are capable of scoring a big goal, but when you look at the depth of Vegas, Brett Howden, Tanner Pearson comes off the bench and has the big assist to help Vegas win a game in overtime. It's proven time and time again how good Vegas's depth is, and they don't have $30 million tied up in 2 guys.
So that could be the kryptonite. Mike Allen, I mean, last series, McDavid had 11 points, leading the NHL in that first round, 10 for Draisaitl. If they play similar, do you think it still shakes out nicely for Vegas?
I do. Well, who was the Vegas killer last time around was Draisaitl, and Vegas still won that series in 6 games.
He scored 4 goals in 1 game, I believe. Yeah. So
that's right. And you know who the Oilers remind me of is my baseball team is the Angels.
Yes.
And I had to see them with 2 of the best players in the world.
Right.
Never make the playoffs with both of them on the same team, Ohtani and Trout. The Oilers are kind of a better version of that.
It's interesting,
but they do lack the depth behind them.
Yeah, that makes a good point. And, lastly, I want to go to our religion panelist, the guy we go to all things religion here on Sin City Beat, Mick Jesus. I mean, do you feel comfortable calling Connor McDavid Mick Jesus?
So I probably would not refer to him as Mick Jesus, nor would I post a picture of myself on social media as the Pope, because I think that's kind of sacrilegious.
Yes.
But for whatever it's worth, I would probably skip that part. But nifty nickname, best of all of sports, like you said, I'm not sure.
Okay. Producer James thinks it's Doug Martin muscle hamster, throwback to Tampa Bay.
Oh, nice one.
But that's a good one. But Mick
Boise
Jesus
State
is pretty phenomenal. All right, so guys, next up we're talking about this battle between the Oilers and the Knights a little deeper. We're going to dig deep on this next block. What do the Knights need to do in order to win? Welcome back to Sin City Beat. For the second time in 3 years, the Knights are facing the Oilers in the second round. Do the Knights have enough juice to slow down McDavid and Draisaitl? So Magnum 702, what do the Knights need to do to win this series?
Well, I think they got to do a lot of the similar things they did 2 years ago, and that's neutralize Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. I mean, it's obviously a lot easier said than done. Edmonton has a little bit of a different system. They have a different coach. A lot of people may remember their previous coach, Napoleon. But I think that's basically the simplest answer is to, listen, those guys are going to do their thing.
Yeah.
But you have to try to slow them down to the point where you can't let the other guys on that team beat you. Because Zach Hyman, Wyatt Nugent-Hopkins, Evander Kane, they're good players, but they're not elite, great players. And I think if you slow McDavid and Draisaitl down enough, it doesn't allow the other guys on that team to really get into flow, because those are the 2 guys who drive everything for that team.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Draisaitl and McDavid not only are their own shot creators, but they create shots and opportunities for other players on the ice, which is a big issue. Mike Allen, what's your take on this? What's the game plan? If you were, coach or Bruce Cassidy, what are you saying we need to do in order to win this game?
Well, for sure the game plan has to do with neutralizing the 2 superstars, Draisaitl and McDavid. But I'll also throw out a stat for you guys. So the Oilers are very much a volume team. They actually took more shots than any team in the NHL this year, but they had the 7th lowest shot percentage. So here's what I would say. If I'm the Knights head coach, it's all about, and a lot of games are like this, right? It's all about possession, who can take more shots. Obviously, you give yourself a better chance, but really focusing on limiting the amount of possessions that Edmonton has, because you know they're going to try to take a lot of shots. That's clearly their game plan this year. They take a lot of them, but the fact that they miss a lot, and also the fact that their save percentage is about kind of in the middle, that means as far as a rate statistic goes, the Knights should have the edge. They've scored more goals, they've allowed fewer. It's just about that volume, because if Edmonton gets that volume, they can put up 5-6 goals.
That's a good point. And, you know, goalie play, like you mentioned earlier, that's always critical in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Ray, what's your keys to the series?
So I think we've got a big smokescreen with this Eichel McDavid narrative, and I think Magnum said it best. Vegas has gotten contributions from every player on that roster, especially the third and fourth lines, and we've established repeatedly that Edmonton's last 6 guys are a bunch of Jags. I don't even know what Jags mean.
Just another guy.
Just another guy. Okay, I'm just another guy. All right. But if
it's a good acronym.
If the third and fourth Vegas lines could really take advantage of those Jags, I think Vegas is in good shape. And then, sure, you know, McDavid's going to get his, no big deal. But if you dominate, you know, on the back end of it, maybe you got a chance. Also think we haven't mentioned home ice. Edmonton is a far way up there and north of Seattle and Calgary. We were trying to establish
the fact that we have home ice is
because once you start going back and forth, like game 5, game 6, you know,
travel takes a play, and that whole thing. Well, listen, I don't think anybody here is a Jag. In fact, Ray, I think you guys are all McJesuses in my book. Mike Allen, Ray Brewer, Magnum 702, Chris Chapman. I'm Mike Davis. Good luck to the Vegas Golden Knights as they take on Edmonton. We'll see what happens. Thanks for spending some time with us here on Sin City Beat.